What's up, guys? Welcome to the show. Does this sound better?
Live.
Do I sound like? Did I finally fix the microphone? That's a big deal to me.
I believe
so. For a long time, I've had this microphone, right? I never used it right, and so I just kind of gave up on it and finally got like better microphones. But the thing is, you just have to talk at it right here. And so I was always talking at it from up here, and you just don't do that. One does not.
The positional.
It's a big deal.
Got it.
There's the other thing too, is like on the back of these, there's like these knobs for like different cardioids. And so you can either have it set to like infinity, which would be great if I have like an interview with two people, you have the infinity set, or you can have like the 3-way, which is kind of, but this is the butt setting. And the butt setting, if you can kind of tell, it's really hard to see, but it's a little bent.
The 3-way and the butt setting.
The butt setting is the way to go. That's the one where it's just unidirectional. It gets one cardioid in your face all the time. So it sounds good. Also, can I show off my shirt for a second? This is like I'm pretty excited about.
So of course.
This was a present. This was a present. I was like, who sent this to me? Who made this awesome shirt? And it says, Xmas, right? Which is
impressive.
Yeah. I mean, come on. So what kind of amazing fan would do such a thing? And so Seth, thank you, Seth, who made this shirt, Venice Beach Dub Club. I was like, oh, that's amazing. So I was pretty happy with that.
That's pretty epic. I like that. As someone who prints shirts myself, like one of my designs here, I'll show quick.
Oh, I love this.
I can appreciate, a good design on shirts.
Dude. It's like a velvet blacklight painting. I really want to, I want to be in a room made of that shirt. See, that's the thing. Your room reminds me of your shirt. It reminds me of like the cool girl with like the Sabrina the Teenage Witch poster and all the velvet. Yeah. The Queen of Cannabis. That's amazing. And no AI. That's like a human. This art.
Indeed.
That's incredible. So somebody was talking there. We tried to get a couple of people on the show. I had some friends. I was like, you guys should come talk on this because you guys know stuff. And they're basically like, no. And I was thinking it was because they had too much to say. And only a few people said that. Most of the people were like, real science. Ooh, I don't know. I would sound too dumb on a real science show.
It's intimidating. It's intimidating to a lot of people, apparently.
But these are people with like degrees, no offense, because you guys are probably thinking the show is something different than it is, maybe. But we're just trying to talk about things. We're curious folk, We just are kind of, explain it to me. Explain this science, magiance kind of thing to me, right? That's all we're trying to do. We're bringing it down to the level of the people. That's where we're at.
What real science is, the scientific method. You try, you come up with ideas, you test them, and then if they're repeatable, it turns into something.
That's pretty sweet when they're repeatable. Isn't that right, folks? We love repeatable. Muhammad's Red Beard is in the house. LOL, Mud Flood and Buried History. Hope you bros have a Merry Christmas. See, this is the kind of, thank you, Ryzen, by the way, Fortnite, I love you. But this is the kind of, this is the kind of real science we're talking about. We're talking about mud flood and things like that. You just enjoy yourself and fit right in. That's all I'm saying. So Daniel,
exactly. Much like him.
Oh yeah, and
truth.
This is great. This is great. We're having a good time. I'm having a good time. I did want to bring up some serious stuff though. Shall I try to do like a screen share just to like make it like
100%.
Feel official? All right. Thank you, sir. Thank you, dear sir. Bernie.
Hey, thank you.
Bernard. Is there like another like older Bernadette or something like that? I feel like it's like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego if you go back far enough with Bernie. Yes, Spintronic probabilistic computers. What do you think about that? So apparently in Tohoku University and the University of California, Santa Barbara, which is the one I was hearing about this from, developed a scaled-up version of probabilistic computers. Isn't it interesting, though? Probably Japan did most of the work, and Californians were like, we had this great idea. We thought there should be light that was colors in the computer. Imagine if it was a rainbow of information. It would be more. Anyways, stochastic spintronic device is suitable for hard computational problems like combinational optimization and machine learning. And so this is why. Who cares? Well, I do, because I want to use machine learning, and it's so much cheaper when you do it this way. See, the idea is to have as much data happen as possible, as quickly as possible.
Yeah, you combine fiber optics into the operating hardware of it, essentially.
Man, I don't have things scale like in the right order, but the reason that this matters is basically cost for cost. I'll just go back to that article and we'll have to explain it without it for a second. So imagine that it used to cost $1 bazillion, like made up amounts of money, to do computations on the scale of, let's say, just the census for people. How many people are what color, and how many Irishmen are living in your neighborhood. These are the kinds of things that Central Tabulation Company did in the old days. Let's just look up CTC, Central Tabulation, IBM. I'll just say IBM. Because the thing, you can see where this is going. Central Tabulation Company made cash registers and all this stuff. And then they started making these machines that relied on textile printing in order to get data from people. And they would say, use this in a census. That would be the most likely. Why would you need multiple millions of numbers of digits processed in certain ways? CTC became IBM, International Business Machines. And then IBM continued the trend with magnetic tape once they got to Vannevar Bush and Memorex, right? Memorex. Yeah, Memorex, right? Well, let's go back a step. Memex, okay. Memex is the system developed by Vannevar Bush. This guy, and what it is a magnetic tape system that held data. And so that's really where all of your data has been stored, has been magnetized. But they're moving forward into spintronics using light. And when they use light, they can use rainbows. And because of that, they can get the cost down for these computations into a single chip that has 7 times the data flowing through it at once, because a red or green or blue or whatever color has another line of data. So it's basically the cost of a house now to do machine learning. And that's impressive. If it's like $250,000 to do,
makes a lot more available to a lot more companies and schools and research places. That takes it to a whole nother level.
And how much money can you make off of it also depends. So people say, okay, well, if I'm going to invest $500,000 or $250,000 at this point into AI, can I make money off of it? Well, I fed a chat GPT my childhood journal entries to talk to my inner child. The results were very therapeutic, right? So these are the kinds of things where they're going to create Turing test passing persons that you'll be able to engage with. And imagine people that are trying to meet a mail order bride, or they're talking to a kid that they're getting money sending to a kid that they're trying to help in another country. Like, you could completely digitize the entire experience of empathy for people by having fake people that you're taking care of. And that's a moneymaker in and of itself. The other thing is being able to figure out what kind of passwords you would use, because you figure out what the person's interested in. And you start by breaking down words that are associated with the books or the likes that they've had, the trends that they've followed. So there's a lot of money to be made, obviously, in GPT. But all right, that was just that was my jump for a second. Just wanted to say that for a minute. What do you think about all this? What do you think about like machine learning being so cheap that anybody can use it to create a version of you that will hack yourself?
I really essentially long-term want to use it and get it applied to all of these different golden tablets, ancient language tablets, stuff like that, and apply machine learning into understanding, both clarifying if ancient documents, tablets of say Sumerians that are found in South America are actually accurate, like grammatically accurate, all of that sort of stuff, thus essentially confirming that they're all what's legitimate, what's not, and then also starting to make sense of it and organize it into who knows what will come out. But I guarantee you we will have a lot more answers.
I mean, it seems therapeutic in some ways. So like, for instance, let's say you save all of the data of your life, so that somebody can process it later. I mean, Is
Isn't that what your Facebook account kind of already is?
It's like a timeline of your choices and changes and your GPS tracking of where you've been and what you did and why. So yeah, I think it is, but it could get
that kind of sounds like my Google.
and then there's this thing now, I can't remember the name of it, but like with the new video cards, let's say you're playing an old video game and they decided to put new graphics where the old graphics were. So you look at a device on a table in Skyrim and all of a sudden the device is covered with really lush textures and things and the lighting and the ray tracing and everything. It's predicting what should have been put in the game to begin with, and it's better than anyone modding the game because it's using AI. So it's like, it's a room, right? Well, a room should look like this. So if you could do, and can't you do that to a Facebook timeline? So you just basically fill in the blanks. So you wouldn't really have the same life, but you know enough about what it was like. You know what they were doing. You know what the house was shaped like. You know the room. You know where it was. You know who was there. You know what they were feeling.
Becoming the ultimate Sims, like
yeah.
Slash.
Do you remember what the best game to the best occupation in The Sims is? Astronaut. You have to work at NASA. You have to go to college. It's like all part of the game. It's terrible.
Why did you ever quit, man?
I just like to watch other people play The Sims. You know what I'm saying? I got a thing to show you also. Have you seen the Blue Whale song? Do you know what's going on with blue whales?
I'm very fascinated by this entire field and subject and like the intensity. It's their own language. How far?
I mean, they're literally freaking giants.
They're going together. Yeah, I know.
They're literally giants. Here's a dude with arms and legs and fingers and toes. I mean, real science. Here's a giant. Okay, and he's lying on his tummy because that's all he can in this reality. Like, this is what's going on.
Remaining mammal megafauna.
I mean, he's a giant, but he's a giant mammal. He's a giant. He's a human, basically, in a lot of ways. Also, like, there's a lot of things very similar about whales to humans. So that's things to think about. All right, but also the mystery of the blue whale song. Earth's largest animals are, get this, singing in ever lower tones. Ever lowering, I think, is the present tense continuum they should mention, and nobody knows why. I mean, do you want to take some guesses? Does somebody want to guess about technology and why a whale would be lowering their tones?
Yeah, competing with the military.
Ain't nobody knows why.
Going through.
Yeah, this is fun. All right, in 2001, a pair of physicists turned. I'm going to pick it up there so you can see the giant and the little man. In 2001, a pair of physicists turned whale researchers noticed something puzzling in their data. John Hildebrand and Mark McDonald were trying to. By the way, Norm MacDonald is an awesome human being, just like God rest his soul. We're trying to build a system that would allow them to automatically detect blue whale songs off the coast of Southern California, but their algorithm kept crashing. Blue whale songs fall below the range of human hearing. If you want to listen to one, to actually hear its ethereal patterns of wobbly pulses and haunting. Is this a Moog synthesizer they're talking about? This is amazing. You have to speed it up by at least twofold. But according to Hildebrand and McDonald's instruments, the tonal frequencies of the song had been sinking to even greater depths for 3 straight years. Like, do you imagine like how weak that pun is, or that they had to? Okay, this is weird. Hildebrand thought to figure out if it was just an anomaly or something more. Hildebrand and McDonald embarked on a quest to find some really old songs. Eventually, they got their hands on some of the earliest known recordings created by the Navy in the 1960s and stored on analog cassettes. They were floored. The frequencies had declined by 30% over 40 years. You could really see, oh my God, this thing has shifted a lot, said Hildebrand, who heads the Whale Acoustics Lab at Scripps Institution of Oceanography in San Diego. Then he and McDonald, who run a private ocean acoustics consultancy, listened to other populations of blue whales in the Antarctic and the Central Pacific, each of which sang in a different song, and the trend held. So they're all singing different songs, but they're all sinking in pitch over 40 years to about 30% deeper pitches, lower frequencies. Together, they'd stumbled onto what would become one of the biggest unsolvable riddles of blue whale research for decades to come. Blue whales are not only the world's largest animals, over 75 feet long and weighing over 300,000 pounds, they're also the world's loudest, whose 180 decibel songs, as loud as a jet plane, can be heard 500 miles away by properly attuned ears. If it seems strange that their songs are so loud yet imperceptible to us, Consider that our ears barely register 100 decibel dog whistles, but now their voices have inexplicably shifted from bass to basso profundo, Elvis to Barry White, and that shift is consistent around the world, even though the local anthems are not. So, I mean, they're going to continue to complain and wax and wane.
And it's like a global, like, animal group society conversation, like social interaction, language, biological alteration. It's just a lot to comprehend going on in there.
It's just bizarrely obvious, though, right? Like,
is it tied at all? I wonder if you can like see relations towards like the Schumann, but I guess it's kind of inverse. That this one's going lower, Schumann's going up.
I think yeah, it'd be nice to show. It'd be nice to show like So when does AT&T start using cellular, and does the FCC start digitizing UHF signals into the 1960s, right? And so you've got these higher band frequencies, and you also have the beginning of so higher bands are out, and then the lower and birds are already affected. There's all sorts of data on birds being affected by higher frequencies, but they're pitched to a human range now, which is interesting because birds also didn't have to do that. There's a lot of birds that have a higher pitch frequency, but the lower frequencies were also taken for digital. And there was a good documentary I saw recently on closed captioning and how closed captioning uses like the 130th line. So there's a signal even being sent in regular frequencies between the 500 to 650 millihertz or megahertz frequency, and then all of the other frequencies that the FCC used to keep just for UHF have been gradually taken back. Right, there's no more UHF TV, so they just take that and then they lotto it to cellular. So over the years, it would get more and more dense and more used. And then if they're trying to communicate, they're like, there's radio. We need to like kind of ignore it, try to like go deaf to higher pitches and only think about like hey, can you hear me in this party over there? That's kind of what I feel like whales are feeling. And that's real science. I don't know.
And heartbreaking at the same time that we are doing this to nature,
I mean, questions abound, right? Because this is also 2001 that they start noticing this. And there's a lot of weird stuff off the coast of California that kind of like Pteroptoxis nocula is kind of this parasite that they were finding. And toxoplasmichian, right? Because there's toxoplasmosis in cats. We all know that. But there's one in the seals, and it causes them to just bury themselves, like burrow into the ocean as deep as possible until their heads implode. Hey, buddy, what's up? Is this Philip Draginin? Merry Christmas, man. How you doing?
Shit, you guys celebrating? Hi, Merry Christmas.
Well, how you doing? This is Philip Draginin. I don't know if you guys watched some of his mud flood research. He's done some amazing videos. How you doing?
Your work. Great stuff.
Yeah, I'm in Thailand, man.
I was about to say, you're in Thailand now? Like, how's it in Thailand? How's the weather? How's the I'll just leave it at weather.
Weather is fine, man. Everything's okay.
That's good. That's the most important thing.
What are you guys doing?
Well, so we're talking about
Canada.
He is in Canada. I'm in Minnesota. It's cold there too.
Yeah.
Have you been seeing anything?
Yeah,
Have you been noticing anything? Have you been noticing Tartarian architecture? Is there anything going on? What are you looking for there?
A bunch of evidence of so-called mining stuff. If you remember, I was talking about that shit. So
yeah. So what do you think went on? What are you seeing? You're seeing examples of mining, like they took it, they destroyed everything.
Like everything is connected here. All these hills, mountains, so just mining by waste. By products. Yeah. And all this, architectures, actually, these original architectures reminding me the cargo code, I've been talking about that shit. But you cannot actually speak about it here because, it's kind of prohibited stuff. Well, so I'm not going to show any examples or anything, but, just believe me.
Literally, are you kidding me? I was just pulling up pictures of Thailand. That's just so...
No, not this stuff.
Yeah,
I have already filmed all this shit, it's on my camera. When I return, I'm gonna upload every fucking thing and do the best, review of that cargo cult in town.
I like it. Okay, there's a lot of stuff that I wonder
let it be just for the future projects.
Okay, we've been talking about giants.
Looking for 2023.
So what I'm curious, do you think there's any evidence there also of giants? Is there anything like that?
Well, there's a bunch of dragons here for sure. There's nugs and all this stuff I was talking about. Serpent humanoids and all this stuff. So
all the art, around. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So,
but you're saying like
probably
well, technically, we're still like right at the end of the solstice time. So like, I'd be like, if I was in Thailand and stuff, trying to get out to like some of those pyramids or even like anywhere you can with the architecture for like the sun and the moon rising and setting, just to try and get some photos of that and experience it too. Cause there's some cool times. Like myself was at Chichen Itza one time on like the solstice, and that was badass to experience like the dragon going up the pyramid. So it's like if you could catch any of that.
Well, so all right,
dragons,
go ahead.
I see dragons as representation of some kind of frequencies of electricity, some energy source. So probably it's related to some technology. A dragon is just misinterpretation or graphic interpretation of what people been talking about. So something that strikes with plasma or fire or strike or something like that. So
I resonate with that. I feel
Well, you got people saying there aren't any such thing as dragons; they're dinosaurs. The other people saying there are such thing as dinosaurs. I say there are. They're just called flamingos now, right? Birds and things. And you look at some of these birds; they have these biomagnetic compasses in them that they can figure out where everything is. And birds are terrifying. And there were giant birds. I can't. What's more terrifying than a squid or a bird, right? So if a bird could somehow make fire, I don't know, or it's associated with fire, maybe it's mixed in the legend somehow. Who's to say? Do you think it might be a giant bird, or you don't think it's a bird?
I don't think it's a bird. I think it's just technological representation of something that you cannot explain to kids or some folks on the ground. Who didn't even see the event or the evidence of itself, So you have to explain it somehow, but you can't. So you imagine something that they've seen, something flying, right, like a bird. That's why it has some wings and stuff like this. Right. But, something like a snake because it has like all these frequencies and stuff like this. And something like an energy or fire or whatever you call it,
So the other thing is those frequencies, because we're talking about whales and birds and how their whales are shifting their frequency deeper, birds are higher. What do you think's going on? Do you think do you think something's going on where we're destroying nature with the frequencies, or did they used to use these frequencies? Like what's up with these frequencies?
If we go to the bottom layer, it's all water, so it's all connection, and I think it's all the same field. We're within this field, so we probably feel all these frequencies. Although since the childhood we didn't learn to recognize them. I think we were blocked by the society, by the by the parents. If we felt something wrong, we were told, oh, it's okay, you didn't feel anything, it's okay. And these birds and shit, they just fly and learn and experience, and that's why they are so good at it, at navigation and stuff. So I think it's just all about torsion fields, this network of connections, is what the scientists predict.
What if they're doing? So if that's what's going on, then maybe they're if whales are giants also, what do you think about that? What about the idea that whales are like the remnants of giants? They're giant mammals. They have fingers and toes. They're trapped in the ocean. They're lying sideways because of something that's happened in nature. Any logic to that?
As what they say, there's always a bigger fish, Joe. So you have to find a bigger fish. You never find it, and whoever is that a whale, a shark, what the fuck ever you're gonna meet, you'll never find it. That monster is always somewhere hiding. So I think some big creatures can exist, but due to the changes in the atmospheric pressure, I think
they've fallen down. They're like crawling. Yeah.
Probably the size is decreasing. We are not emerging anymore as what we used to be, like big size people. But we kind of hybrids of those big guys and the small fuckers that were helping them. So I think something in average is okay. So let's hope we're gonna stick to that for a while.
Man, but then it also means maybe there's a war going on. So they've already conquered us, humans, and the giants, the whales, or what's left. Like they're easing them out of their frequencies. You know, they're taking their frequencies, man. That's messed up.
It's like a dog or a cat.
Real
you know?
science.
Cat can see in the night. Yeah, so she has night fucking vision. Whale can see what the fuck ever in the depths of the sea, so he can navigate and stuff like this.
Yeah,
so
like the sonar and like how they experience it. It's like they're in an existing reality in a higher dimension than what we can actually process. Essentially, same with like a bat and like their sonar things. Like it's nuts.
Look at the fucking insects, man. Just stop at this example for a while. You know, you see so many detailization in each and every pixel of their eyes. We are not talking about human brain and capacity of memory of that brain, you know, which is not calculated properly yet. So I mean, we have to just research as in macro level as in micro level. So I think that's the problem, because we are blocked at both, you know, with some, you know, paradigms and stuff like this, which are blocking by the budgets, you know, robbery, corruption, all that shit that is going on. You see all these scientific projects, and the spending of them is just enormous. So they
and
have
people
to
get less and
something.
less ability to have attention. So it's kind of interesting. Like the more and more things are taking up attention, the less and less of it we can focus on.
Of course, you just have to be qualified to be allowed to do something, and you waste your fucking time just to qualify for that. You cannot qualify if you have alternative point of view, right? And that's a 100% fact, guys. You will not qualify if you have alternative view, or if you express them, or if you some type an out of paradigm folk. You know, you're never gonna get a license. You're never gonna get a qualification. Your tests and your exams will not be you know, assumed as real, as scientific or whatever. You're gonna be just some type of outcast, you know.
Yeah, but you know, that's like fun too, because then you got the counter, you got the, what's that called, where you're the counter opinion, the counter idea.
Devil's advocate sort of thing.
No, devil's advocate's the other one.
Well, yeah, literally, if you have a counter opinion, you're gonna end up at the counter, you know, and serve hot dogs for people. That's what you're gonna end up without any fucking money in this world. So, I mean, you have to finance. You have to, you know, human funding or crowdfunding platforms are also exist. They also exist. The paradigm there is also pro-scientific, as you can see. You can probably count on your hand how many projects were pro-alternative and how many funding did they receive, but probably I will not even say a single example which satisfies me properly. All I've seen is just spending money for nothing and just blocking the idea of research, of further research. People gain money, they think that they pay somebody who is qualified to prove something, write a book about something, or do something like, you know, make a video, documentary.
Yeah, I like it better when people just build something for the government and don't tell anybody. Have you seen Argentina's Hummel Island fusion reactor, right? And they act like it's a fraud and all this stuff, and some people are like, wait a second, actually, it probably wasn't a fraud, maybe it was real. Whoops, oh, the CIA stole it. Yeah, that's a big deal. And I think this is probably the better way to go. They've been hiding fusion for what, 70 years at least. I don't know an account or anything, but
at least since like the late 80s with
everybody
Fleischmann.
Everybody who was doing real research on fusion either ended up in the cement in the bottom of a bay or something, you know, with his feet blocked.
Dude, who's Hans Fleischmann? I know Burneye, you were telling me about Fleischmann. What's his deal? He did some fusion work. Or did he just disappear? All right, you just have to keep going.
Yeah, nice way to pass that. Get rid of the guy and that's it. You just fucking talk. Well, anyways, I mean, fusion is a big thing in Russia, in Soviet Union. Everybody was talking about it in 60s, in 50s, in 70s, you name it. I mean, 70s was the year of fusion progress. You remember all this scientific articles and conferences about that, and where it is 50 years past.
Yeah, exactly.
I love when I type Russian fusion, they're probably thinking I mean like a food.
The Takamats.
They're like Russian fusion, like with like potatoes. I don't know, but this is like a Tesla coil. This is a Tesla coil.
Massive Tesla.
You know what I mean? Good job, good guy, Soviet. I love it. This is also the Cray computer. You guys just like made better versions of stuff. It's like that movie Armageddon.
Yeah. It's just a bunch of crazy motherfuckers there who were really believing in what they do. And that's why these ideas were so, popular. And if you read these scientific magazines of 60s, 70s, you know where all these magazines went, actually. They went to Japan. These motherfuckers just bought a bunch of these books and took them to Japan. And everything that Japan invented actually was from those books, and people were just laughing at it because in the 90s we would buy something that somebody from USSR invented in 60s. I mean, that's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, but when people see Soviet anime from the 50s, again, with this won't ever work, but Soviet animation, and you're like, wait a second, also all animation was based on Soviet animation? That's crazy. They invented like the better version of it all. I don't know. Not to toot the Soviets animation horn too much, but I do like it. Still, fusion in the Soviet Union, what happened? If you had fusion, then wouldn't everything have just been fine? You've got Chernobyl running and all that. What happened? Did CIA just blow it all up? They did, didn't they?
They're actually like the leading development of both like nuclear hot fusion and cold fusion and warm fusion as well. But then it's like how much they've actually made public and how much they have running or how much further developed it is over there is probably classified and not really well known or well understood in the West, because the West just believes that it's impossible, so they don't even fathom the prospects of it, the science of it whatsoever, I guess, really.
And there were some pretty good documents that show how the CIA basically dropped dudes off in planes, and then they like landed, took people's lives, they killed them, took their bodies and assumed their identities, and started living in Ukraine and took over Chernobyl and then destroyed Chernobyl from the inside. That's been basically, expunged from the documents.
I don't know much in all dealing with politics. It's who knows.
Well, so the fun one that led to this is that Chernobyl was during the Pluto eclipse. So that's I wish I had the Chernobyl Pluto. Come on, show me something. But yeah, it was during like the eclipse of Pluto, and so if you know about what was going on with Joan Quigley, she was the astrologer for who was the president at the time. And they were basically planning all this based on the times that they had, they're like, okay, this will be a great time to destroy Chernobyl because it's the eclipse of Pluto. I mean, it's just, this is the fun part of Real Science, where we talk about the astrologer for Ronald Reagan.
Chernobyl killed Pluto. Real science. At its finest. Merry Christmas.
But it is for real. It's just hard for people to handle, I guess. I don't know. So basically what that means to me is the Soviets had fusion, Argentina had fusion, and it was destroyed. Why was it taken from us?
Well, I think Chernobyl really is somehow related to that, but...
You don't think so?
No, I don't think so. It's just quite different technology and different situation. Chernobyl was planted or established on a bad foundation place, I would say, because it had some cracks and some misconceptions during architecture project was occurred actually, and
some people talk about
it was reported. It was
there's
reported,
hoax. There's a story. It's a hoax, and it was all just geothermal to begin with, right?
No, there's still like you can go in at any point with a drone for it to melt down in the insane radiation to try to take a picture of all like the other drones that have died in the graveyard hallway of radiation drones there in Chernobyl. Like that they've been
heard about that. No, Chernobyl was actually just several mistakes. First architecture mistake, the project mistake. Second, the placement mistake. It was placed badly, close to, you know, highly populated area and, you know, agricultural area. So I don't think that's a very good idea anyway, but who knows, actually. They did what they did, but actually it was a mistake during the so-called the experiments that they were proceeding in there. So they were testing stuff without proper preparations, and that was leading to some technological difficulties, which led to rising of the temperature and blockage. So that's what was the explosion cause, actually. So if they weren't testing that day, I don't know who was actually gave them the order to do that. Nobody.
Right. There's a dude
got to jail for that, actually. Nobody
to blame. He wrote a book about it too, and like there's a lot of evidence that he was an agent, but you know he was actually from the Soviet Union. Let's see, what's his name? And he's got a book like that day. But basically, he said, pull the reactors, like turn off the emergency levers. And then they were like, no. It's like, do it or your families get kicked out of Chernobyl. And he's like, oh. So they do the first two. And then the third one, they're like, no, even if you kick out our families and fire us. And so that's why only the first ones went off, right? I forget the name of the guy who's to blame. Anatoly Zetlov, right? He's got there's memes about him now.
Yeah. If it was that bad, it would exploded every motherfucker there, right? But they were in control. They were in control. They were in control, and that was actually the mistake, not the catastrophe. Is it? You know, it's not some CIA agent who planted the fucking bomb somewhere. No.
Yeah,
they were just some bunch of
boundaries of science at the time, essentially. But you
have to understand, Soviet Union in the 80s is just a crowd of a bunch of old communists who didn't understand and recognize the relevance of the time. They were out of time. They were just in the 70s. They were still drinking vodka after Victory Day. They were just useless. And then their decisions and their laws that they were actually creating, science, that evidence is correct. So I mean,
kind of like let's go Brandon today.
Yeah, I mean, we are getting all these papers right now that are showing how intricate it was. People just don't believe. It's like how crazy would it be for the CIA to take that much cocaine? And it's like, no, they were, and they definitely did. Drop dudes into Russia and the Ukraine to take over their lives. And so it's kind of like, sure, maybe, but are we just growing up in the 90s and we were convinced by the CIA that they didn't do these kinds of things and that it was all our fault and that the Soviets were just drunk? I don't know. It's hard for me to be just completely convinced that the Soviets screwed up that bad, but maybe it's possible,
Soviets did screw up, man. As what I researched, Soviet Union in the late 80s is just, mass, a traitor led by a traitor, and all have the same ideology just to ruin the fucking country and take whatever
but if you look into CIA sabotage of the Soviets, it is pretty brutal. Like every step of the way, it's like, oh, those sneaky CIA just like cutting the line. Ooh, like they blew.
I don't think CIA has a pretty big role. I think MI6 played a big role in that. So CIA not really.
CIA had
MI6.
The cocaine though, and
the
cocaine
UK has always hated, even now, they're just like the provocateur against the Russian bear.
Yeah,
the Tartar bear from the beginning.
Yeah, I mean,
you don't know. You don't know the story. Actually, in the 60s, USSR loaned Great Britain a bunch of money, and if that wasn't that money, I don't know what Queen would have done to save the country. Actually,
really.
But after that, it all changed around, and they started to hate it, USSR again. So I mean,
we're not gonna pay you back. Screw you.
Yeah, I think it's all about this Romanov's cash that they actually carry still in their banks. I mean, that's a huge load of money there, and you have to prove that these deceased corpses that they found are actually Romanovs to claim that as their own, property, because they are the closest relatives to these ex-Russian Tsar family. So.
Oh, that's a very good point.
Yeah.
Actually.
Also, Stalin, when you look at Stalin and the Rothschild connection, right? Because he would get arrested over and over again, and he would go to jail and he'd escape, and he would get arrested for robbing Rothschild banks, which he used to get Lenin started. So a lot of the Soviet Union tied in both directions.
Lenin received money from the German intelligence, from the German agent. He was a Jewish guy, but he was a German agent. Everybody knows that. His name was Parvus, and Lenin was actually in Switzerland when the revolution already took down the Tsar, took down the previous regime. But Parvus, as German agent, wanted the Russians to stop pushing Germans from the Eastern Front. It was a war where everybody was surrounding Germany and kicking its ass, but Germans wanted to stop that from the Russian front and get rid of this pressure from the Western front. So and that's why they bought Lenin. They bought this huge amount of communists.
Stoops just make it. Stoops.
What up?
What's up, Stoops?
What's going on, boys? How you doing?
Welcome.
Put the baby to sleep, mate.
This is the long-awaited first appearance of Stoops on the channel.
I'm feeling nervous, bro. I'm feeling nervous.
And also Philip Drusen, and on the multi-stream. What a great Christmas,
dude! Welcome, guys. It's pretty great to have you guys.
Get rid of.
Philip's in Thailand. Stoops is in Australia. So I think we've done like a pretty good thing here, really.
Not right?
Yeah, we're in the north right now, in the Great White North. Where it's super cold.
And I'm down here near the ice wall. You know what I mean?
That's pretty good. Yeah.
The barbed wire wall or fence, maybe, but it's the icy in Canada and Minnesota right now. Pretty bad.
Do you have any thoughts on nuclear fusion, Stoops?
Me?
Yeah.
Well, I'm not. I wasn't up to date on what you were talking about, but not as such. Not really. Sounds like a good idea.
Yeah,
we haven't been prepared yet. Also, I just
No. Yeah,
I just like conversation. I figured nuclear fusion was something kind of general and open-ended.
We can talk anything science. Just like what can you apply it to?
That stuff that they've been saying about those modular nuclear power reactors or whatever that they're building. Like it's like a reverse. It's a solid state or something like that.
SMRs, the small ones. Yeah,
and that looks interesting for Australia.
I want the ferrofluid, so it's made out of ferrofluid, and then you just turn off the electricity and it melts. So if it melts down, it literally melts down. You know what I'm saying? That's what you want.
Yeah, but it looks like a good idea for a country like Australia. Only 20 million people, or whatever, 26 million people, whatever they say, and if that's not that many people, you have to give power to. Meanwhile, they're like all the power prices are going through the roof here because they're shutting down all the coal plant.
That's the thing, right? It's that great reset vibe, right? So does it feel to me or you like you guys feel, or is there a we feeling here on all the money being drained out right before free energy arrives? Free energy is about to be here. They just don't want you to have any money to buy free energy once it's here.
Yeah, or is it just a bait and switch? It's like all these rare earth magnets and all this sort of stuff, like lithium and all that. It's all none of it is actually renewable. You know what I mean? Because it's like coming out of the ground and all that shit. And it just seems like they were saying in Australia, it's going to take like $400 billion or something like that to rewire the whole place to make it green or whatever. But we're already wired up. You know what I mean?
So here's the biggest thing about fusion, but it's also hydrogen is the key aspect of the fusion, and that everywhere you hear, hydrogen is the future fuel, it's about to happen and this and that, but then they never give you any more on it. And the reason is because the hydrogen comes from water and putting a small amount of electricity into water, and now you're turning water into fuel. So then instantly the petroleum industry is just gone and everything else is gone. Because from this point forward, we're now using water as our main fuel.
You haven't heard about where hydrogen comes from, actually.
Where is it? Primal water? Where does it come from? Tell me,
guys. You're supposed to learn. Yeah, hydrogen comes from natural gas, guys, from methane. That's where it comes from. That's where the production comes from. That's the cheapest way to.
The cheapest.
Yeah.
Well, so that's how they're trying to do it that's how they're trying to industrialize it as out of the natural gas, so then it's still the same gas companies utilizing it as opposed to just using water to do it. Because
even that natural gas in Australia back in like when I was a kid, all the ads on TV were like saying this natural gas was this new clean energy. Like you can go look it up, like all these old ads from the fucking 2000s and the 90s, and now they're like pretty much fucking getting rid of natural gas, and the prices are going right through the roof while we're still sending it all. We send a lot of it overseas for our people to use and shit. So I don't know, such a resource-rich country like Australia, just seems like confusing that it's all like everything.
Same with Canada. It's been taken over by a giant technocratic corporate global cartel that is just, well, and the 1% elite, whatever it is, whether it's new power or old power, they are enslaving us all and stealing our natural resources when there's more than enough within our nations. And
exactly. It's like in Adelaide, the GM, like General Motors, came here like in the fucking 50s or 40s or something like that, and at the time there was like trolley buses and trams and shit going to the port, and like you could, every 15, 20 or they were like literally the same as in the San Francisco video, running directly behind each other. You never have to wait unless one broke down and all that shit. And then as soon as General Motors rocked up, they're like, if you want us to make this fucking car factory here, well then you got to rip all that shit up, dude. So like even on all the main roads, there's where the trams used to be and all that shit, and now they start putting the trams back in again, and the budgets just to lay 10 kilometers of track are just unbelievable, and they have all sorts of problems, even just to turn a 90-degree angle. With these trams, they can't even, take them a year to work out the geometry of it, and it's just like, that's when you realize, fuck, what are we gonna do, dude? It was all here already, and then now, like you said, if we're coming to this point where they're gonna bring back free energy, I don't really buy that they're going to actually bring it back. I think it's all just going to make everything go.
It's that there's so much of it coming out that they can't really stop it. But yeah, they're going to continue to do everything they possibly can to prevent it from taking over. And like that's the whole thing. It's like they don't want the secret getting out of you can use water and electrolysis to make the hydrogen stuff, like the Stanley Myers style technology.
I just want to reiterate Stu's point, though. That's hilarious.
Welcome,
where they have
Dr.
like these
Disinfo MT.
Hey, what's up, Disinfo?
How's it going?
I was gonna say I really love how they started out with electric trolleys that eventually they couldn't figure out a use. They added horses to them. That's hilarious.
Yeah, fuck. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. I've shown you some stuff of Adelaide and Australia, and it's a head scratcher, dude. I mean,
we have to go deep. We're gonna have to go super deep. Dr. Disinfo, tell us a little about yourself really quickly. Now that you're on the show.
Sure. Well, I pretty much saw the link and I decided to hop in. I'm coming in a little blind.
Cool.
Tell us whatever you're willing to tell us about your background or what you're interested in.
Let me think. I don't know. I guess have a general.
Did you go to school?
Yeah. Like I have a general computing and math background.
Okay.
As far as what I'm formally educated in.
Legit. Okay, so that gives me a place to go. So what do you think about fusion in terms of entropy? Do you think that there's that this is going? What do you think? All right, start off with that. The idea of energy and free energy and the reset. What are your thoughts on this? Thoughts on that?
And yeah, so one key point for reference is that just in the news in the last couple of days, like some official American university has published that they used a laser, like kind of like cold fusion, but
it's not even making it up.
It's warm fusion, and they got more energy out of the reaction than they needed to put into the reaction, which was the key step missing for nuclear fusion power plants to go. And it also is the fact that it's now like well, we've acknowledged you can get more energy out of reactions than putting in, aka over unity is legitimate and free energy is everywhere, sort of thing.
Yeah. So as a math man, what do you think about over unity?
Well, I'm not familiar with the term, but that
it means basically to go explain what is unity in energy.
It's you're getting more energy out than you're needing to put into the start or create the reaction.
Okay. Yeah. All right, that makes sense. Well, it seems like something to be cautiously optimistic about. I would, it sounds like, without knowing enough about the mechanics of this,
it's big.
I assume we need to see more before we say. I mean, obviously, it sounds really promising, but it also sounds like something that could be kind of blown up before it's really known what's really possible. But
that is a very good point right there. Like what happened with that Martin Fleischmann you just had there back in the 80s. And that was the first cold fusion acknowledgement publication of it being real reaction, and then the entire academic community.
Sorry for the head rush of tab switching. Yeah, I was just trying to. I'll get right back to him, but really quickly, I want to say the laws of physics don't actually exist, meaning that we keep thinking that there's these restraints, and then we find that there's actually a way around it. The question about over unity comes from if you're getting your energy from potential field, or if it's literally possible to run this in a vacuum, whatever that means, completely without anything else, if it's producing energy on its own once it's started. And that's a hard question if it's possible. Do you think it's possible isn't that the opposite of what you're taught to believe in school, right? That it's supposed to be impossible.
It is. So
yeah, it should be, I would think. That changes a lot of things if it is possible. I would assume there's a lot of conclusions then, right? That kind of that just kind of cascades out if you can just pull energy out of nowhere. And I don't believe it.
You don't, yeah. So that's the question. So this is the thing. So many people have come up against the wall that energy cannot be created or destroyed; it can only be changed. And so that you're getting energy
from so many devices that have all been shut down and rejected, and now this is like the official verification. If it's like accepted that now everything can start being published publicly and no longer being denied.
But even in like biomechanical fusion, like even in like the ATP, ADP cycle, like a certain amount of energy is lost, right? There's a certain amount of energy created, but there's energy lost in the cycle as well. So, I mean, I don't know. I wonder about this idea of how would we even go about, like, how is new energy going to be produced? How is new electrons being created? What's happening?
Well, my assumption would be at the most kind of, at the very least, it would be some system that we don't really comprehend or understand yet. And that's where it would be coming from. That would be my what would seem like a reasonable assumption to me. But I mean, it's possible, I suppose.
I mean, I like how open-minded you are, and it's interesting thinking about, because CERN's recent talking about metaquarks such as the pentaquark, which has been, kind of officially evidenced to the public as much as it ever will be. This idea of energy being something even subatomic or something beyond the monadic. That's what do you think about energy? What do you think about subatomic?
What do I think about energy? It's a hard question to answer.
Real science? Okay, cool.
I don't know if I really know what it is. I'll be honest. Like,
well, does anybody?
Kind of like a phenomenon, right? I don't know if
exactly. Energy is everywhere.
Yeah. It makes me think of my ayahuasca days, where you start thinking shit like, everything all energy goes back to the source and then gets recycled and put back in. Like, you fucking you're thinking, I'm going to become a vegan or something like that, and it's just like, well, it doesn't really matter because everything gets recycled and put back into the system anyway, So
I mean, I feel like I'm going to get nothing out of reading the Wikipedia definition. So I'll just,
it's the energy's continuing in, and that it's a higher dimensional circuit where the big debate was that, it's a closed system, it can't come out of nowhere, but it's like, you're just pulling these energies in from higher dimensional systems or higher setup systems, energy systems and transfers.
It's not Phil, like I believe what I said. I was just saying what I used to think.
Phil, what do you think is energy?
I think it's frequency. What is producing frequency? Yeah, what is producing frequency actually? So is it the resonance that we all produce that, you know, can be resonated from some source and, you know, reflecting the energy back? Who knows? So maybe, or maybe it is something from outside actually. And here goes the boiling room theory that everybody was talking about several years ago, like in that movie with Jim Carrey, right? Where everybody was having control of weather, tides, and so on and so on. Who actually knows how it works down beneath?
I mean, we think about vibration. When we talk about frequency, you think about vibration. I don't know, is it safe search? I better be careful on the internet here. But vibration's interesting because you've got, like, you know, bass guitars and these strings and everything. And we're looking at physical model synthesis, right? Physical modeling synthesis, right? Which is the idea of taking wave models and studying how they're produced in order to get really realistic, kind of like ray tracing, but of sound, right? So you can kind of imagine what a metal or wood or some kind of material would sound like. But this is able to emulate what the human ear is used to hearing because it understands the quantifiable physics, right, necessary to produce that kind of wave. And that's, earlier we were talking about whales and how whales they're lowering their frequencies, and our hypothesis, I don't know if we could just call it a theory, is that it's because it's been happening since humans have been using those frequencies. So it's been shifting. They've been trying to get out of our frequencies. And we're getting to a point where we have less and less control over these vibrations. And maybe these vibrations are very important.
It's an interesting thing you were saying before about, you know, the getting out more than you put in sort of thing. I've got an example of it here, maybe, where you get out more than you put in. I'll show you. Hold on.
I like where this is going.
As do I.
I know what it is, too, and it's great. It's relevant.
That I don't know.
I mean, look at that, bro. You know, it's a fucking bag of, like, sawdust. All right, maybe
I thought you were pulling out a baby, but that's still amazing.
Yeah, well, but no, yeah, it's like, it just trips me out, man. You get like 3 lots, or you can get 2 lots like this out of it. All you're doing is spraying water on it. It's just mixed with sawdust and a bit of fucking, like, rancid nuts or something. I don't even know, you know.
That's some dope mushrooms.
See, and that I'm all for. I'm all for field, and like that's beautiful. I want to eat.
And farm, like producing your own like natural food. It's an essential part of.
And the amount of yield you get out of it, it's like unbelievable. Like, yeah, everyone when they see it to start with, they're like, "What is this?" And it's just these tiny little things. This is only 5 days, you know, 5 or 6 days of spraying fucking water on it. Not even a lot, you know. Just seems like there's something to it. I don't know.
Right, I agree. But that's back to field, you know. So when we look at field and we think about energy, it's very hippie. But it's great. We have, if you live in reality, you have, you know, the sun and you have the water, and these things are there. What they keep trying to defeat us with is vacuum, saying if you're in complete nothingness beyond the thing, if the thing itself has started, okay, but beyond that. Can it create? I mean, this is the God particle at that point. If something's able to produce more matter, I think is what we're talking about, even because or something, because it has to be able to have potential energy beyond just being stored. It has to be generative. And so how could you even have fractal energy that's generative?
You're asking me, bro?
I don't know. I mean.
Yeah,
Dr. Disinfo, you have any thoughts on generative energy?
Also, how is that distinct from what we're talking about? Are we talking about the more than you put in, or
right? It's kind of this idea of over unity, because it's the idea that if something's able to store a pattern that then causes something to produce more energy. It's like reverberation, right? So you talked a bit about the idea of subatomic particles. Maybe there's something in subatomic particles that can cause reverberation and then could cause excess energy to be generated.
Isn't that essentially what they say a nuclear bomb does, you know?
Isn't that what a song is, though? Also, this is Solomon magic. This is how the temples are built. But yeah, a nuclear bomb is radiation. So it's just like all the frequencies at once. Or I don't know if that's oversimplification.
Jesus.
I mean, sound bombs are crazy, you know,
right.
The idea of waves, and we don't even think about like how. Look, is this somebody saying? Are they talking about radio waves hitting the guy in the head, or is he just able to hear it? I don't know.
Mm. Have you heard about this police technologies to?
Yeah,
set the frequencies in certain direction.
Yeah, they use like sound energy weapons.
Yeah, to make people feel like.
No, I made the video. I made a video about that. So but crazy. They took it down. Yeah,
the riot control stuff. That makes people feel like their blood's boiling or something.
Are you guys talking about active denial?
Yeah, blood's boiling. System? Yeah, blood's boiling system.
Well, they didn't even. It's called active. It's called ADS, active denial system. Jot that down. Get that one memorized because it comes up a lot.
Major term.
Active denial. Can I just make this
crazy?
Yeah, basically, ADS, active denial system, is a non-lethal directed energy weapon. However, it can be lethal if they want it to be, I guess. But designed for area denial. So you're trying to keep people from getting into the area or stay out of an area. You know, it's kind of like what they do with dogs or whatever. It's like a heat ray is the other name.
Dude, even the ambulances here now, when the ambulances go past, it's got this like woo 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 sound, and it's unbearable, dude. Like when they, like, it's not just a siren. They've got like some fucking, it's like a vibration that comes out of like a woo 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 as it's going down the road. It literally makes you like go like, oh fuck, you know, like But they actually used it on fucking Australian
riot
people.
Control.
Insane. But
I'm trying to load that page, Phil, but it's taken a Russian moment. The birth of new technology, water fuel cell. What's this?
It's not mine.
No, I'm waiting for yours to load still.
That one was from Anthony Williams, and that's the Stanley Meyer device paper, I believe.
Oh, okay, yeah. So refresh.
Why not share something that'll get us killed? Let's go over it.
Yeah, let's really quickly, while we're doing it, refresh people on Stanley Meyer's water fuel cell. We talked about this before, but I don't know. Dr. Info, I don't know if you've heard of him. This is a guy who invented a water fuel cell car, and everyone was like, that's crazy, but he like made it public and then he was killed. Or like he was suicidal. Epstein, you know? Yeah, how it goes.
I saw something about this recently. I don't remember what. It was some meme or something, but it was this guy.
Epic. I'm glad he's been submitted to your subconscious. But so what is the deal? What's the deal with Stanley Meyer's water fuel cell car?
Water fuel cell. That's the key part, is you just need a little battery, and then you're just turning water mass as your main mass into the hydrogen with just a small amount of electricity. And his design was able to carry water as the fuel that then burnt in the combustion engine, or it turns more into an implosion than combustion.
This I like. I'm far more about this than like vacuum, like alchemy. I think the idea of producing something without energy is I'm very interested in how that's quantum possible, whatever. But here with fuel, this is completely reasonable. And now you've got a fuel cell, and the battery has a certain charge, and then you can give it that charge to continue it, and then that continues the high ampage necessary to break down more water. So once you start it,
exactly that's essentially the nuclear or the electrical or energy system that you're getting. Once you have it fired up, it's producing enough energy to keep itself going, plus put out more to power the whatever you're doing.
And he died. So then they murdered him, and that sucks. But so here's his paperwork. What was the deal? He was trying to build this car. He released the actual paperwork on how to build the thing.
Built several of them. Yeah. And then so some Saudi Arabian, I don't know if it was the royal family or just someone was sent with hundreds of millions of dollars to buy him out, and he refused to sell the patents. And then after that, there was like some Dutch or Belgium, I think it was. Yeah, Belgian investors or something that came to do a deal with them. And it was seen that they like gave him something, poisoned him in a like public diner, and that's where he died on the spot. And he has an identical brother that also like still has all of the information and knows how to do it, and has like not said a thing in the last 30 years since his brother was murdered. Wow.
Sounds like free energy's just been out there. People have had it. Oil companies have killed them for it, but it's about to be released.
Is that enough to stop people from trying again, though? I don't know.
That's the whole point.
Yeah, so actually it's interesting because we know some people that are trying to do this, and we try to do some of this ourselves. Burneye does some really interesting stuff, actually. Let me go to John Hutchinson's page, the John Hutchinson effect. Have you heard of John Hutchinson? Do you know who that guy is?
I don't know. I don't know if I have.
He's this Canadian scientist and physicist who does just like he's like hardcore, you know. He's got every machine that the military let him keep, but he will implode metal, you know, with high voltage electromagnetism, and he's created a thing called the Hutchinson effect, which is high frequency energy applied to mass using Tesla coils and high frequency radio waves at a 75-pound solid steel ball, which causes mass induced by a high frequency wave increase in frequency, causing levitation, right? So this is the ionic lift. If you remember, if you ever played with the magnetic trains or magnetic magnets in general, you just put them against each other the wrong way and they bounce away. That's ions being forced off the magnet because of the polarity. So this is creating a space which is forcing the ions off of the off the metal ball.
You're making me think about if they made an artificial pole or not.
An artificial pole, like the
North Pole? Magnets.
Yeah, exactly. And so the other thing is, if you had a bunch of cellular towers, right, you could broadcast. You know, you could use
all
Tesla
sorts of things,
right? And so you could create solid state crafts that would float using magnetism.
Yeah, they're saying it's all about magnets, right? Like rare earth magnets. Like
exactly. So magnetic motors that they've now got and developed essentially are over unity motors and engines, and they're all made by a bunch of spinning magnets and coils together.
Every drill, every like electric drill, fucking saw, table saw, all that shit. If it's ran by an electric motor, there's fucking magnets all up in it. Even air powered tools will have magnets in them. There's a company right now not that I'm an investment person or whatever, but there's a company called Pensana that's trying to build like a rare earth magnet processing plant in Africa that's like completely, green and all this shit. And like, I've been looking into it for a while, but yeah, it seems like it's gonna be harder to get than lithium. You know what I mean? Like, to get these rare earth magnets and get them processed properly and shit. It's
deal. People will be scalping them out of their old hard drives.
Yeah, totally.
Edward Lee Scanlon, right? You know, the guy who did Coral Castle. Have you ever seen Coral Castle? You know that one?
Yeah. Oh yes, and love it.
I get the wrong window. I don't know. Oh yeah. If you got it, good. Go for it.
One of his books is The Magnetic Current, and it's like there's a whole other energy, like science and field that is the current of like magnetic current, not just electric current, but there's also magnetic current, and it's been completely ignored by our current human understanding and engineering and usage. And it's one half of the electromagnetic system that is electricity.
Yeah, and so long story short, you can make a magnet virgin again, even if you can't do that with a human. So it's pretty useful to have like that's what Edward Lee Scanlon's book talks about, the 16 sweet virgins, it's referring to the polarity of these magnets, and he's taken metal and he's polarized stone with it, right? Because he's using radio. And so electromagnetic radiation and radio and probably harmonics are the answer. But Phil, is this your page? Show us.
Yeah. So I just wanted to, talk about it 20 minutes ago, but eventually we ended up about hydrogen and nuclear, right? And
I love ADD, but keep going.
Yeah. So what are they trying to do in 20s? So in 2021 they started to innovate in this hydrogen production thing from the gas, because all these Russian gas pipelines, gas facilities, and so on, gas capacities. One of the biggest amount of gas natural produced. So I mean, Russia was supposed to be one of the first hydrogen suppliers of the European Union, because the European Union is planning to use hydrogen soon. Natural gas is not very ecological, is what they say. So all these pipelines like Nord Stream 1, Nord Stream 2 were produced to also transport the hydrogen. So it's also capable of that. So I mean, that was quite a big pain in the ass of other guys like United States and so on. So I mean, this is why the war is starting exactly at this time, when it's already, as you can see, there was a roadmap. First hydrogen producers will be Gazprom and Rosatom, and they have a roadmap. The companies will launch pilot hydrogen plants in 2024 at nuclear power plants, guys, at nuclear power plants, because they have to have energy to process the gas and create hydrogen from it. So gas production facilities and raw material processing enterprises. So it's all available in Russia. Russia is full of resources. So in 2021, Gazprom is developing a test methane hydrogen gas turbine already. So it's all working. And boom, so we have Nord Stream 1, Nord Stream 2 explosion recently. Yeah.
This is really interesting. I mean, because people keep talking about isolation and what's going on with the petrol. Wow.
So it was all a plan, a scheduled event to Russia to change from gas production to hydrogen production, and everything would be fine. Germany would proceed as one of the best economies in the world, as it is actually number 4, number 5 right now. And right now what we have, companies that live in Germany, guys, Volkswagen, Bosch, other companies that just moving to United States and gonna pay taxes there. So just because of this raising of prices on oil and gas,
the giant economic war that the U.S. is hustling on everybody.
I can't wait to buy a Lada. I can't wait.
And the reason for this, huge hike in the prices is also to even the prices and the expenses for the free energy producers, or not free energy, for green energy production, and the oil and gas production. So it kind of become even, because oil and gas was a little cheaper, and it was always hard to fund and finance all these projects concerning green energy. And right now, when oil and gas is pretty much expensive, it's kind of even in price, and they can spend more money in green scam projects, actually, because most of them don't even work and won't even work ever. So that's why the reason of that. So this is whole picture is what I see.
Yeah, absolutely, right? Like the green energy stuff is such a scam. It's insane, and it's the exact opposite of over unity. It's under unity, and that they just waste so much inefficiencies of resources to generate and use the current electrical grid system and heating systems and stuff.
I mean, wherever there's CO2 from carbon, there's like rainforests. So it seems like we're in good hands to have that. Here's a Geet engine.
Talking about carbon, guys, carbon, as you can see, the biggest carbon spill in history was also related to the explosion of Nord Stream. The huge bubble that were flowing into atmosphere, all these CO2 there, that's just enormous,
Well, I also think
Yeah, who is responsible for that? Actually, nobody. Nobody cares. Nobody cares about thousand
Wait,
airplanes.
Doctor Disinfo, did you have a question you were saying?
No, I was just going to say also that compared to other kind of ecological threats, the fluctuations of CO2 are something that can probably be adapted to within reason.
Right. So there's a big thing on that, the vapor canopy. So this is kind of fun. This idea that at some point, what the water vapor canopy? What do I gotta type in? Tell me, Bernie. Water vapor canopy theory.
Not actually sure how to look it up, but yeah,
so it gets a little biblical. But if you think about it, this idea that there's a lot of water, that there was a density of water, kind of like Venus at some point that covered the Earth, and that because of that, even if there were giant trees, then there would be giant megafauna around the megaflora. And so this might explain some of the megafauna that we had that might have been larger than is reasonable today, right? So look at a blue whale, like we were looking at earlier, and compared to a human comparison. How about that?
I'm just going to run to the bathroom, Andreas. I'll be back here in a couple minutes.
No worries. But we were like just kind of saying, hey, here's a human. It's a giant mammal with fingers and toes inside of its body. But it has to lay, and it's 30 meters, 100 feet tall. It's a 100-foot tall giant, right? But it has to lay on its tummy, and maybe that wasn't always the case. Maybe at some point we're talking about megafauna that were able to deal with this vapor canopy, and you've seen like the silicon trees story, but there might be something to it. This idea of giant trees that were maybe mushrooms or something.
Oh, no, not actually trees though. Yeah.
Right, yeah, there might be something like that. There was like excreting minerals coming out of the backside of this mushroom foam plate that was 5 miles wide. Right, you've seen the giant mushroom, 5 miles.
Yeah, because I do at the very least watch a lot of videos on the I forget what they're called, but those early fauna periods of the fossil record. Those are always fascinating.
Yeah, what do you think about the idea of maybe that there was just like a more dense atmosphere or something for megafauna?
Sure, I don't see why not.
Sure, right? Yeah. Well, okay. What do you like about the idea? What are some of the things you think about when you think about megafauna in that period?
I guess the big thing I wonder is if it's just and I don't know if there's a lot of evidence of this, but if many of them were just killed off by packs of our early ancestors or something.
Yeah, I love the question of whether or not it was like our fault or whether it wasn't. That's a good
like
one.
If we were that good at just culling I don't know. And we obviously have remnants of them, in Africa and and elsewhere, but for the most part, they just kind of. I think there are some relatives of the elephant line are pretty much everywhere in the world. You can find fossils of them. I want to say, right? Like between.
It seems like it. I like this idea of the Tartaria thing, right? Is that you've got this lost civilization, kind of this Atlantis-like civilization. What's his name? Grant Hancock kind of civilization, and then it's destroyed, and part of that includes like world after tomorrow, like environmental shift. So maybe out of Indonesia, Krakatoa temples, they've got this kind of idea that there was this volcanic energy plant that was running the world, and then it explodes and we lose that civilization. And then also you've got, what's it called? The Carolina Bays.
I heard, now this is entirely secondhand. I heard from someone recently there were some very oddly dated ruins in, what was it, Turkey or somewhere?
Mm-hmm.
That were and something very odd, which was the statues have. And I heard this secondhand, so I heard this from someone else describing what they saw. So I cannot confirm any of this, but it was a very attractive idea to me, if any of it's real, which was that they found these statues with consistently 6 digits, which should not make any sense, because from what I understand, 6 digits was something that was kind of genetically sieved out millions and millions of years ago. So that it wouldn't be possible, or it shouldn't be possible for that to be an ordinary trait, especially in anything that remotely resembles a human.
Like, what do you mean? So in the DNA or in the architecture of the?
It was in the architecture. Yeah.
If
I were in the DNA, that would be a big deal. But So I don't know if
radionuclear method of date tracking, you mean? Radionuclear method of date tracking?
Right. Yeah, that was the dating on it was. But
well,
again,
it's not precise. Everybody knows that. People who actually research, they know that you have to always use it along with some other methods. So if it's not correlating with other, so it's not working. That's what they say.
Right. The biggest problem with radiocarbon dating, if that's what we're getting into, is nuclear volcanoes, right? And so you can think about Oklo nuclear volcano, which is the Queen example, but there are volcanoes which are on top of radioactive areas. There's a lot of volcanoes, and they even because of that produce plutonium, at least scientifically. This is the official story. It could also just be that this is an ancient Tartarian power plant, right? But according to IAEA, International Atomic Energy Agency, and a lot of French people from the 70s, there's evidence that this is somehow possible, that you could just have volcanic flumes that work sort of as linear accelerators and could actually deplete uranium-235 and produce plutonium. So in that circumstance, that messes with your radiocarbon dating, right? Because then you could say, oh, this was a lot further back, because we're assuming things are taking this consistent approach when probably it's just this crazy volcano every once in a while that's making the major dating. But then you can use the ice.
It's not the only problem. You have to search for more. There's a lot of I know it in general, but by the way, Fomenko, the guy who created this new chronology historical religion, I would say, so he also has a book where he also talks about each and every method and criticizes it, and that's why he made this mathematical platform to decrypt the timeline. And so he put all this data there, and just the math. So he's a mathematician, he's not a historian. So
yeah, it's pretty interesting. So have you actually, Dr. Disinfo, you might have been interested if you've ever heard of Anatoly Fomenko. He's a Russian mathematician, and what he did was he looked at the chronologies of different calendars and tried to reconcile them, and found a lot of difficulties because the Jesuits have messed with the calendar. And there's the Hebrew calendar, and then there's the Islamic calendar, which are more synchronized. So using that plus Russian dating, basically found like 1,000 missing years, basically, that the Jesuits have been hiding or something like that. What do you got, Phil? What do you got?
Let me jump in. Actually, the idea of that was based on the research of Isaac Newton. He was the first guy who actually measured this information about lunar, solar eclipses, and so on. So he was the ideologist. Then some other Masons started to do that, and one of them was I just forgot. I have a video about that. Each and everybody was mentioned there. And Fomenko was the guy who was joining the crew, who was actually one of the researchers. He wasn't the only, but when he left the group, he made a book printing machine and started earning money on his story. So but the idea is very great, I think, because it totally debunks the official timeline, and I believe it. Actually, I believe it, although I don't have all the instruments as what they have, but I believe this one.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. Oh, by the way, hey, Julia, I wish I could click on this button, but I'm through Burneye, so Burney's gonna have to come back and click on it. Merry Christmas! Thank you for the super chat. That's super awesome. We love you, Julia. Yeah, but looking at this idea of like chronology, like who cares, right? What's it matter? Except if it comes back to this idea of the reset, then all of a sudden you've got these places that they've added 1,000 years to them, maybe more. And we've forgotten the names of the real countries and what languages they've spoken. And so it's really easy to just take over their properties, create new laws, and force them into, some sort of a wage debt corporate state slavery.
Exactly. The movie Avatar.
Yeah, right. Well, the Carolina Bays, which I kind of shown a few times, I think are really interesting. And here's some of the LiDAR pictures of them. but they're these giant holes, you know, that looks like something exploded, and there's just nothing there. There's no asteroid. And for a while they thought they were asteroids, but there aren't. So the next thought is that these are giant chunks of ice that were shot out of volcanoes, or volcano pressure in North America pushed out, and then these giant glaciers that were this big
landed. That's pretty creative. I don't know about that.
Do you got a third idea? What do you think happened?
No, I don't. It was pretty weird.
Here's a crater, and then here's all the other spots, and as far as they would have gone. It's pretty nuts. You know about Yellowstone, right? Yellowstone supervolcano?
Yeah.
So, I mean, like, right? This is the last one. We're up for the next one. What do you think? How long before the next supervolcano destroys us all? Take your bets.
As a guy who actually lived there for a year, I would say nothing's scary and nothing's gonna happen at all.
You think it's just like nice fume, like they got it all set and it's just gonna keep bubbling?
No, I think just it's all a bunch of bullshit, and nobody knows actually what's gonna happen. They're just spending money, as I've been saying on that, and you know, all this volcanology is basically pointing the finger in the sky and saying whatever.
I mean, but there are also power plants, right? We could use this geothermal, right? This could be free energy. Here's the answer, all of it.
They use it already. They use it already. Who actually needs free energy in Montana and Wyoming, where there's oil everywhere? You know, who needs this energy? That's what I've been saying. There's a technology and there's production with costs, you know, and expenses. And you have to understand that if it's expensive, you won't ever build this stuff. If it's dangerous, if you have to pay a bunch of insurance companies, I don't know who's gonna pay for that.
Yeah.
So think about it. It's efficiency, it's money, it's budgeting, it's finance, first of all, and investment. That's what's leading this stuff. This is why nobody's gonna get rid of oil and gas.
What about we're supposed to be afraid for the birds, we're afraid for the whales, they're losing the ability to use their frequencies. People freak out about 5G. Do you guys have any thoughts about like radio frequency? Is it harmful for people, or is there a way it can be used for good and evil? What do you think? Is it magic? What is it?
Yeah, my video was banned about that. That's the same video I've been saying about the ADS. So people were saying that you can use 5G for this ADS technology, actually perpetrating the human heart or whatever. If you have this graphene in your blood, that can jump right into some personal, arteria and block it, whatever. So that's just unimaginable bullshit. We all have cell phones with us, right?
Yeah.
They can definitely explode it when we're talking. That's no question. If they want to get rid of us, they can do it. Anytime.
What was that called?
Anywhere.
The Samsung Fold 5 or something? Remember that thing? It was like exploding. What was it? Not a Fold. It was a Note. The Note 5.
That's just the lithium battery getting messed up, right?
There was a crease.
It's a lithium battery, but the explosion is controlled via smartphone technology, right?
Did they make you do that in school, Dr. Disinfo? Did you ever have to do that formula where you figure out how big the explosion will be on an airplane because of the lithium battery and how charged it is?
Because
it's a big explosion is the problem with lithium batteries.
It can cut your head in half, guys.
That is
crazy.
That's wild.
Yeah. I mean, it's a pretty impressive thing what you can do.
So using 5G for this control and this finding the person, killing them, perpetrating target, that's okay. But actually there's more cheaper ways to do that and more silent and quiet ways. Just imagine if people are gonna be dying in the streets, dropping dead because of 5G. Nobody's gonna be using any fucking 5G really. So they don't want to do that. So 5G is just a data transfer technology with the higher frequencies and probably have maybe more effect on something, but it's in the field of non-ionic frequencies, right? No, so I don't think it's going to harm us at all.
The impression I got is that there's so many other types of electromagnetic, I guess, saturation going on from like, just the radio from the cell phones and the Wi-Fi and this, that, and the other, and that 5G is not
well, you can measure that.
Meaningfully
you can measure.
distinct from
again,
those.
remember that blue whale's freaking out, man, and they're singing deeper and deeper songs because they're like, dude, we can't even hear ourselves think, literally.
And is that specifically in response to like a particular frequency?
Bro, the title says the mystery of the blue whale songs, how nobody knows why. They don't want you to know this. This is our completely harebrained crackpot, theory right here, because they're just telling us this has happened. Here's the data. It's been going on since 1960, and it's gonna get worse, and it's getting worse progressively, and we've got records of it because they've been recording whales since then, and their tones just get deeper and deeper and deeper, and they're just wondering. They're just like, why? People, right? I don't know. I could be wrong. But I think the thing is we're saturating so much of our signal. That was our thought. Like UHF used to be all these TV stations. We were kind of headed. Now it's like everything is the cellular data they're auctioning off, and it's just there's no space anymore in the vibrations.
Yeah, I totally believe that. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. They're getting pushed from their frequencies to lower frequencies. That's it.
And birds too, right? Because birds can sing. We're singing higher frequencies, and we're all being pushed into this middle range, right? So our density.
I think there's probably other even worse consequences than that, though. Just from I don't know that we know what it's really doing to us long term.
Extrapolate. Oh my God, that sounds.
Well,
great.
Actually, in Russia, they prohibited using cell phones in school. If you know, actually, 10-year research showed that if the person uses a cell phone, he has less grades, less understanding, less memory skills. If he has a cell phone on the table, he also doesn't have as much, intelligence as the guy who doesn't have. So, in average, of course. So that's a 10-year research, and they totally banned smartphones right now.
Well, you could chalk all of that up to the impact it has on on your behavior. That could easily be explained with just how invasive the phone is in your life and the way you think.
Well, they actually measured the frequencies along the way, and so.
Yeah, I guess it could be that too, but that's nuts if it would have that much of an impact. But.
And the cell phones got just better not that long ago when you can Google stuff like this, and so probably in the beginning of these research they used the old ones with the buttons,
Oh yeah, those are pretty primitive, relatively speaking. Yeah.
So it's not like a source of information back then.
Yeah,
it's just the same situation,
I mean, they did have all these papers. I remember in the long ago days, when I was a wee boy, and like Motorola and Nokia, and they were fighting. They're like cell phone radiation, frequency radiation. What if it causes tumors and cancer? And it all just kind of just disappeared in the mid '90s. They're like, yeah, but we need them. You know what I mean? But people were really they were doing all these amazing tests where they put a phone chip, the Qualcomm chip, directly towards water, right? And then they'd use a giant pool of water to measure its frequency, and they're like, wow, this is nuts. And then they just kind of stopped talking about it. I don't know. I'm pretty convinced that it can't be that safe to use 2G, which is water frequency. That was the big one. They said, okay, let's move it out of 2 because 2 is where your microwave works at. And I don't know, 5 is really, that's where once you start thinking about your mental capacity, if you're thinking in these frequencies, and we're using things like Open BCI EEG, right? I don't know if you looked at Open BCI, but I got this brain cap thing, and it'll scan different parts of your brain, and this is the one I got, not the fancy one, but it'll scan different parts of your brain, and it'll tell you what kind of frequencies are coming out of which part of your head, right? And so if you start to notice the frequencies of different kinds of people, they are affected if they're living in a place that has 5G or not. And they've noticed this in the forums. People that live in like Kathmandu do not have the same problems as people who live in, Chennai, which is a part of India that has 5G, right?
Well, if just 5G can have that much of an impact, then there's this is just the tip of a giant iceberg. That's
Yeah, it's
really is.
Different countries, different frequencies, by the way. So it's not all the frequencies that could harm, actually. So in this 5G, this closer to 4G right now. Everybody's using that like 3.5, 4.5.
Right. 5G is not 5G. That's an important fact. 5G is usually 4.9 or something weird like that.
Yeah. So it's not like
I think I just proved that.
And all these, crazy videos when birds were dropping dead and stuff like this. Trees were, rusting. I don't know.
Yeah. Dude,
it's so crazy.
When I was in Barcelona, I was like in this town, Tarragona, and it was like before the pandemic, like it was in like February or January that year, 2020, and like a whole flock of birds died on the road. If you look it up, Tarragona birds dying, it'll come up. It's like, and then they're just like, oh, they got hit by a truck, and it's like, how the fuck did a truck hit like 300 birds, dude? Like literally.
What type? Tarragona?
Tarragona. So it's like Tarragona. That place is crazy with all the ruins, the Roman ruins there and shit. But yeah, there's a petrochemical plant right near it.
So they only had 300 birds, right? Nothing else.
I don't know how many birds were killed, but fucking it was. I was there on the day, driving on the exact.
Definitely not killed by toxic cloud. All right, that's
100% not. The whole place is a petrol refinery, so
right. I remember, I was going through. Oh, that's right. I've been through Tarragona, man. I wish I had some photos for you to show you. Like, actually, a video of me just driving on the highway with like fire burning behind the.
Yeah, dude. When you come over the hill,
this is what it looks like. This is what it looks like all the time. Oh, come on, load. This is what it looks like all the time. It looks like hell. It's like burning all the time. I had like $20 eaten from a gas machine there, but I met this nice lady. I don't know. It was bittersweet feelings about Tarragona. But yeah, still, the birds getting just murdered. I don't know. Flamingos, too. They don't eat krill. They don't go pink. Look at that. Freaking.
I did not know that.
Yeah, crazy.
Yeah, you get like that blue smoothie krill. See what happens. I'm not sure. You know about Russian woodpecker? You've heard about harp. You know about harp? Tell them about harp. You know about harp, Dr. Disinfo? Tell them about harp.
I've heard about harp. I don't know much about what's officially.
Right. Yeah. Right. I mean, they use it in the X-Men movie though, so it's got to be messed up. I mean, here's this Chernobyl version. It's the Russian harp equivalent, and I just saw an article. It was like, oh, they're using this in conspiracy theory videos. Well, yeah. Because it's a weather control machine designed to control your mind, literally. And they use this to do they used harp to do the bring cake experiments. That was the fun one. They were like, cake. And then people at work were bringing their bosses cake. Their wives were making cake. They were just eating cake. And they were like, I don't know why, but I'm obsessed with cake. Everybody had to buy all the cake. It was crazy. Sticky marks. Question, recent Tartarians in your 9 will, 3 love, OTO, recent Tartaruan. Do I hear my mate? The Jones lad, Bowie, Rippish. I gotta hear you speak one of these days so I can try your accent harder. Wait, don't bring it back. I was ready to read it. I've some unreleased bits and sods. I've some unreleased bits and sods. If you'd like any of, and cool you'll for all hurrah. Thank you for the 20 pounds, Sticky Marks. You are a love. Sorry. So here's the deal. There's right here near your Chernobyl zone, here's a Chernobyl plant, you've got this woodpecker thing, and it's designed to affect the weather. The cake experiments, that was crazy, but the Soviets were better. They realized that you don't just send the word cake, you send the idea, right, of something. And so that gets into this like meta of laugh track and sitcom where they're trying to program us to have the same responses to stimuli. And so now you have a bunch of people that are trained to respond the same way, so they can just put out a frequency. And hopefully we all do the same thing. Cut to The Time Machine, 1960. Have you seen that movie? Right? This guy travels through time. He goes to the future. And once he gets there, they play these sirens. Sirens just make... Can I just type siren? Was that going to do anything?
Yeah.
Boom. They play these sirens, and then all the people just like single file into the buildings like it's the Midwest and it's a hurricane, you know?
Yeah, it's like I think that kind of happened, didn't it?
The guy who actually wrote this book was the ideologist of the Great Reset.
Really?
Yeah.
Damn.
Gerbert Wells, one of the ideologists of the Great Reset. He is the one. He was the
Did you say
one of the first.
Wells?
Yep.
Yeah, totally, dude. Yeah. One time I met this old man who did all the cartoons for Big
read the titles of his books.
Yeah.
Before his death, just understand what he was researching about.
This old man
crazy.
Was a famous illustrator, and he would walk around in the mall dressed like hell, 1950 style, but he was like 90 years old when I met him. And the first thing he said to me was, H.G. Wells was a prophet of his time, mate. Look around us. Everything we see here is what he said was going to happen.
Well, yeah, but not in a good way. I mean,
no.
Yeah. I mean, so have you seen the Things to Come? Wait, there's a shade of Things to Come. I gotta watch this. I've never seen this. The Shape of Things to Come. All right,
we have to stop the self-fulfilling negative prophecies in these fictional things. Is what it.
Well, so. All right, we're gonna go through it anyway. The Things to Come, important movie. Please watch it. 1930, but right before the war.
I'm talking about Herbert Wells, guys.
H.G. Wells.
It's him.
Yeah, H.G. Wells. Yeah. A movie by the author. Yeah, that's right. The British government.
That's the guy who made about this Martian War of Worlds.
Yeah, and the time machines. Yeah. Not Orson Welles, the radio guy who did the radio of H.G. Wells, which is cool. The radio version is amazing, and good job, CIA. But when you think about it, this is the most self-fulfilling prophecy. The Things to Come, it takes place right at the beginning of World War II. It's actually right before World War II. It came out months before World War II. And they said in Britain, they're like, let's just say there's like a war, like a world war, like the biggest, like 2.0 world war, and it destroys everything. Everybody, we're all dead. But there's a few people left, and they become kind of like, I don't know, can I say, like Renaissance, medieval, there's like a king, and he's like a general. I can't find pictures. Doesn't really matter. The thing is, it's all horrible. And then this dude shows up from the Iraq, and he's like, let me go back a page. I'll find the picture of him. Yeah, there he was. This dude shows up, and he's like, yo, king who's got your Rolls Royce being pulled by a horse in your fallen apart, dilapidated post-World War II that's destroyed everything society. I'm the Freemason of science. This is the verbatim quote. I am the Freemason of science. We are the wings of the world. And I've come from Iraq where society has continued on, and we've let you guys all fall behind us. And then, we're going to just give everybody world peace. And then he just blasts them with LSD gas, and everyone gets high. And afterwards, they're defeated. And now it's like this perfect society. And from there, they live underground. Like, they build this, like, super civilization that's amazing. And then they're wearing capes and stuff, but they live underground. And then they're building a rocket ship that they're going to go to the moon with. And at this point, humans, like your average Joe, are like, you know what? Screw them again. We don't want to keep dying for their cause. And then they're going to become Luddites. And there's all these Luddites that are trying to stop progress. They're like, we don't want New World Order and that business, which is really weird, right? Like, why would you write this movie unless you were literally Tavistock? But then the guy says, we're going to give everybody dies. We're going to give people a reason to die for, something to die for. Like, we're going to build this thing. And then they build this giant thing, and they ejaculate humanity into space. And that is the Things to Come. That's their whole idea. And it enslaves humanity forever. It's a crazy, like, how is that like a happy ending, right? But that is you definitely need to see it. I'm not even exaggerating. That's what it's about.
Check out the link, his bibliography, and scroll down to nonfiction.
Pulling it up. One sec here. Nonfiction.
Collection of articles. So he was in Russia. He was traveling. He was talking to Lenin. Russia in the Shadows. His collection of articles. Also, if we go history and essays, World Brain. Next one. What is Coming? 1916. New World for All. 1908. Open Conspiracy. 1928. New World Order. 1940. And so on. Marxism, Liberalism with Joseph Stalin. And so on. So he had a lot of stuff. Not only Future in America. First, there's a lot of articles here. You can scroll and scroll and scroll, and all this stuff is just, you know, ideology for the Great Reset. If you look at it closely,
he wrote the New World Order. Well, that's got to be fun. I got to read that.
Yeah,
non-fiction book proposed a framework of international functionalists that could guide the world towards achieving world peace. Well, I mean, that sounds good, right?
So the older he became, he was more advanced in this Masonic and all this Illuminati stuff. He was also researching it, and they were using him as one of the ideologists, actually funding him. So he made money on that. Actually, that was his profit, not his non-fiction books, or not his fiction books. I mean.
His utopian explorations and concepts of technological change, evolution, identity, and new forms of global governance have seen scholars describe him as the father of science fiction. The British author George Orwell, a harsh critic of Wells, said that no one writing books between 1900 and 1920 influenced the young man as much as H.G. Wells. Orwell expressed that thinking people who were born about the beginning of the century are in some sense Wells' own creation. That's kind of interesting.
Yeah, dude, makes you think about it's like all a pattern, you know. I remember the first time, like how ridiculous it sounds anyway, but the first time I saw Peterson, you know, I just had this overwhelming feeling that I was like looking at like Aldous Huxley, like the new Aldous Huxley or some shit, you know what I mean? Like recycled fucking narratives and characters like all through history. And
I love all like the soft, like libertarian, no, like what is it? What's it called? Where they're like leftists, they're like the bottom left quadrant people that are acting like alt-rights, you know, in the media sphere. I love it. I think it's really interesting.
Yeah, it's pretty funny.
I didn't know they existed.
I like to keep them close. Here's also like Australia in the days of past, you know, and you look at some of the things and you think about like the tower here, right? Like some of these like giant towers. What do you think's the deal with these towers? You know, and also interesting, Australia is the perfect example. When people talk about Tartaria, they're like, it's like there's a bunch of people were just brought to a place and just filled it in. And Australia is like, well, we just brought a bunch of people to the place and filled it in. It's kind of, you know, so what do you think's going on with that?
Mate, you know, it's just, yeah, obviously, you know, we've got massive timeline issues. That's my main thing with Australia. Like, you know, the timeline, like, you know, where I'm at is like South Australia, so Adelaide, so you know, they sort of rocked up in the 1830s. But then if you look at the timeline, even before that, the smallpox came and wiped you know, all this sort of shit. And it's just like, I don't know, man. You know, like since I was a kid, I looked around the city and there's mud flood buildings and all this stuff like everywhere. And yeah, it's just, it's in most other places in the world, you can rationalize it, you know. But when you go to Europe and shit like that, you go to Europe, you're like, yeah, I fucking understand. People have been here forever, but it's the narrative that they give us. It can't possibly be real. I mean, like my lady, she's got all these papers on like the 1865 threat of invasion from Russia, you know. And when you read into them a little bit, they sort of look like they're just sort of saying like, once again, like someone was here, they laxed on kind of protecting the land and all that sort of shit. Like they didn't update their military and all that sort of shit. And in between, the English or whatever were building up all their fleet and everything to become like a maritime fucking mogul, you know. And by the time they got here, the Russians were like, fuck, our boats are all old and shit. We can't really defend it. And so they just fucking left. And then all of a sudden it's like, yeah, just send a bunch of orphans here, send a bunch of fucking criminals, whatever you say, probably all orphans and people who are like, you know, bred around the reset time or whatever, and just tell them all that we built it all. And like, then they can add to it still. Like they can still come and make bricks and they can come and fucking add to the infrastructure. But some of just the basic infrastructure doesn't make sense. Like the roads cutting through the hills, like in my city, right? There's all these paths and shit. They're cutting through the hills, dry stone walls, all this stuff. Like in the countryside, and or the hills, because we're surrounded by a belt of hills, and there's like churches on every tippy top of every fucking hill, and they're all old as shit. And you're just like, dude, there's no way the population could be 30,000 or 40,000 in the 1830s and 40s, and then okay, maybe there's 100,000 or whatever as it gets to the 70s and the 80s, And then around the 1900s, it just fucking explodes, you know? And then the war comes and they send them all to the war, and just, yeah, obvious. It's sort of just like, fuck, dude.
I love it. I love the idea, though, because what it's saying here is basically, we're used to this Eurocentricity, like, okay, Europeans could have built stuff, otherwise nobody could do it. Indonesians, you saw on the Graham Hancock thing, Indonesian temple.
Gudon Panan or whatever.
Yeah, what's it? How you spell that? Gudon.
I don't know. Yeah, Gudon Panan.
I don't know. I gotta try.
Pandang.
Man, the point is, there's this giant temple.
Yeah, that's the one. That was the one.
This guy right here, though, and they said this was fake. They're like, okay, you know what? This must be all natural. And they're like, okay, fine. Maybe non-white people can build a temple sometimes. And even then, they're like, you know what? He probably means white people. Like, they're so pissed about it. They can't deal with it. That there's maybe people around the world that built temples a long time ago. It's manifest
destiny. Have to call Graham Hancock racist.
It's manifest destiny. This idea that everything was done by white people, and it's so old, and we're usually like, to the point I thought we were okay with saying that's not the case anymore all the time. It's possible that other people built stuff, but the idea that Australians could have had anything there that wasn't built by British people in the 19th century.
Well, there's Portuguese forts and shit, man. You know, like honestly, when I think about it, I think like, you know, the Aboriginals that were in the inland, like living as hunter-gatherers and shit like that, had no interest in that stuff. Like Evan and William Strong says, you know, like they let the Phoenicians live here. They let fucking all these different civilizations come and have like farm here and shit like that. Take resources, but like they were like, you're not included in what we're doing, and they didn't even speak about it to their own tribes and shit because they weren't like interested in buildings because of some prophecy or some shit. Like they've been around long enough.
Like, stay away from buildings. It's dangerous. Yeah.
Don't bother doing it. It's not worth it. We'll just fucking live off the land. Like, you know, if you see the maps of the Aboriginal tribes, that, you know, they could pretty much hand stuff on, like, and not, you know, they were that close to each other, and there's that many of them in their little tribes. Like, you know, trade and everything would have been fine living in the center. But then the English come, and obviously they fucking wiped out heaps of them, so they've probably lost a bunch of their historical knowledge as well. And, you know, then they can be told what they were before. You know, you just threw spears and fucking chased kangaroos around, dude. You know, it's just how it was. You know,
you bet they were told.
Exactly. You know, so yeah.
But I think there's still people or lots of tribes around the world that are still living in hunter-gatherer right now, as advanced as we are. That it's like, it's existed two different human civilizations essentially all the way back to like the most primal
we have these islands. We have places where people aren't allowed to develop too. You know, they're like, we have to get vaccinated. These people can't have electricity. We want to make sure that if everything goes wrong, there's still some humans. They have human zoos, right? They have human zoos essentially.
Can I jump in before I forget about indigenous people and Aborigines? By the way, in Belgium, in Brussels, there was a zoo with people in it, Aboriginal people from different countries, from different lands, and so on. So, just going back not that far in history, take a look at the Canadian schools. Google Canadian schools, and Indian kids' corpses there.
Oh, what's it called? Residential schools. The residential school genocide.
Kamloops, dude. In the Kamloops.
Yeah, it was not that long ago.
No. The same here. We got the stolen generation, like, and that's so. Like, I've got friends who are Aboriginal that are born from their father that was stolen and given to an adopted out Western family and all that sort of shit, dude. You know, like there's a whole fucking. Yeah, dude, that's the sort of.
But nobody remembers the genocide about, you know, that was prohibited by Ottoman Empire, right? The Turks versus Slavic and European tribes. That's why Slavic are called slaves, because, you know, slaves and Slavic is the same word, actually. That's what it came from.
Yeah.
So
because they were slaves, yeah.
You got orphan trains too. You got Janissaries, you're right. There's the Slavs. So in other words, everyone everywhere, you got their kids taken and mixed around, moved around the world. Maybe good for keep it from inbreeding. That's what the Catholic Church said, right? The Catholic Church
Look at the Irish kids in America when they were working, like from 8 to 12 years old kids are like brought to America, and
the Catholic Church would just say, "Hey, you know what? We should bring a bunch of these kids to Canada and bring some Canadians down there, because then that way they don't the genes are fresh." I mean, this is the Catholic Church. This is so close to eugenics, but it's like theogenics or something. I don't know, mixing good Catholics. Right?
Well, it almost reminds me. This isn't any sort of. There's no genetic consequence to this, but it reminds me of the monkeys that would kidnap puppies and raise them to guard them.
That's the best story I've ever heard. Where do I even find that? What? That's the coolest. Oh my gosh. Traumatic rescue. Is this something else?
No, that's not it. No.
In other words, this happens a lot. This is terrifying.
Yeah,
I didn't even know this
repeated behavior.
Guys, keep your dogs safe. 250 dogs?
Well, not this. No, I don't know what you're finding. All sorts of weird stuff.
Oh my god. All right, so wait.
Monkeys ended on a horrible note.
Wait, where's the warm one you had? I'm sorry.
Puppy killing Grinch.
I'm sorry. Baboon kidnaps, raises his pets. This is cute.
Yeah, I think that might be it. Yeah.
All right, cool. Thanks. Nice save. You know, I
mean... a little more wholesome.
Anyway, orphans from Canada, guys. We're about 2 hours deep. Is there anything you want to make sure we share before we let you guys go be with your family?
Definitely have to first off say that Stoops and Phil, absolutely awesome having you guys on. Tomorrow we're doing a 8-hour Christmas special multi-stream that'll also be on Autodidactic. And Xirtus, do you want to be a part of that multi-stream as well? I'm thinking
I would love to, but I think I'm gonna be.
You don't have to worry about like hosting much of it. We've actually got like 20 other YouTube channels lined up on it.
All right, let's make it happen. I'll see what I can be. I'll try to have
Stellium's coming on. Artadino's coming on. I think Mine Unveiled might come on. We got Paul Cook coming on. We got Paul of What the Flock TV coming on, and we've got Cesnor Stalin. Global Vision coming on at some point. So
this is all star. What a crazy Christmas Eve. Okay,
yeah, so everybody
Illuminati confirmed. Okay. All right. Let me pull up
maybe even Martin. I think Martin was also invited by Cam.
Oh, that's so cool. I hope to God he does.
I wasn't fucking invited by anybody, so
I just invited you right now. So.
No.
I just extended the welcome.
I just got invited myself, so as far as I know. But guys, in the meantime, just make sure you do give Philip Dragin some love. Go subscribe.
I'm currently on pause. Ain't doing shit, so don't come to me.
All right, well, you can still reach out.
Well, we still love you from in Thailand.
I know. There's some good stuff here. Also, again,
just kidding.
Can you zoom my shirt one more time? Just let me say thank you again to Venice Beach Dub Club for making the Xmas shirt, which I love. It's a great shirt. So that's pretty sweet. So, and, as a shout out, guys, take the time to go to Venice Beach Dub Club's page, which you can get right here. And, can you show that for a second? Sorry.
What?
Show my screen share.
Oh, sorry. Boom.
Boom. Go to Venice Beach Dub Club. Listen to Christmas Time Thang. I'm going to keep calling it. And you get on Apple Music, also on YouTube. YouTube is sweet because there's like a little music video you can watch while you listen to it. It's super rad. It's reggae. And yeah, Stoops, do you want me to share where they can get to you?
Oh, go ahead, mate. Yeah. I got my, I do have a YouTube channel. It's just fun. I've done a few of those, analyzing Adelaide videos and all that sort of shit a while back, but I kind of lost interest in it. Stoops, yo.
I got Instagram, by the way. It's pretty good and it's working. Yeah.
So what is your analyzing Adelaide?
If you see, it just Stoops, yo. It should come up. Like if you say for my what do you call it? My actual account or whatever. It's Stoops, yo.
It's Stoops, yo, or Stoops?
Stoops, yo.
Yeah, Stoops, yo. Okay. Channels.
Yeah. There's the old Adelaide. Go.
What top one here?
I'm getting screwed. Go down a bit, man.
Oh.
Philip, what's your channel on Instagram?
Phil Drozinian.
Here.
Yeah, put in the private chat.
PHIL bottom slash or whatever you call it. No, not Philip. Phil.
You know what?
Phil. Oh yeah. That's
YouTube did some weird shit because it's like Yeah, it's saying Stoops 0911 after it these days, but I think if you type in Stoops and then a space and Yo, then you might get the channel. And yeah, there's the old Adelaide one. Yeah, that's the one.
There he is, beautiful baby. That's what I was hoping when we were talking about Alchemy. Also, Stoops says like amazing alpaca furniture. Low key, like if you ever have money and you're like, I made it. You know, you'll know you made it because you bought some of Stoops stuff. I mean, look at this stuff. It's crazy. I mean,
Mate.
Yeah, that's pretty sweet, dude. I'm pretty impressed. All right, but yeah, get on to Stoops and watch his YouTube videos. I'm gonna find it and put in the description because you do have some pretty good Adelaide videos.
I'll send it to you. Nice to come on and meet and see you finally and talk like this. And yeah, it's cool, man.
Dude, and you're followed by Made by Jim Bob, so shout out to Made by Jim Bob because we love him. Let's get him on the show too.
He's a good man.
And love to Owen Benjamin. And Merry Christmas to you all. All right. Oh wait, Dr. Disinfo, do you want to share a link or anything?
Nah. But thanks for having me. That was fun.
Yeah, come back anytime. You know what? All right. Peace, people.
Absolutely. Much love. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year's. We will see you everybody hopefully tomorrow. Bye-bye.